Welcome to Happily Ever After These Days. Today we'll be interviewing Broderick and Erica Santiago. They have 4 beautiful children. They are from the Mableton, Georgia area, and Broderick is the pastor of a great local church called Mosaic Church. Their website is wearemosaic.org. Please give them a visit and let us know what you think of the interview. Hey guys, how are y'all?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you too. So Erica, we'll start with you.
Well, technically I'm from West Virginia, but I only lived there for a week. That's where I was born, and I grew up in New York. But I grew up about an hour north of New York City. And I've been in the Atlanta area now for about 20 years.
Oh wow. What are some of your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Well, I enjoy cooking. I used to enjoy painting, but I wasn't very good at it, so I stopped. Most of my time is spent focused on my kids or church. I'm the business administrator, and then I homeschool one of my children, and the other children I'm actively involved in school and what they're doing at the school, in various volunteer roles.
I love your website. You've done a great job with that.
Thank you.
We're talking about Happily Ever After These Days and kind of how it is now. What, growing up and even currently, what is your perception of what that means, Happily Ever After These Days?
Well, of course, growing up, I'm familiar with the Disney princesses and Disney movies. I was really excited when Beauty and the Beast came out when I was in college to go see it, even though I had to borrow one of my friend's kids to go to the theater. My parents are still together. They've been together about 45 years.
Oh, wow.
And my grandparents on both sides were together until they passed. So I think I had a pretty good view of marriage, or at least that people were together. But I also understood that sometimes things didn't work, and that you worked through them. My dad was a pastor when I was growing up, so being a pastor's kid, I got to see a lot of people go through things that a normal kid probably wouldn't. I know that with Happily Ever After, I didn't have really high expectations, even for myself, because I did know people where it didn't really work out. So I'm happy with where things are now, but I don't think I really felt one way or the other about if I got married, if I didn't get married. I think I was okay either way. I was a bit of a workaholic, my husband will tell you, so.
Married to the job.
What did you do before you got married?
Well, for the last 25 years or so, I've been in the litigation technology industry. Currently, I work as a consultant, but very part-time because of the kids and family and church and everything. But I used to work probably 80-hour work weeks, travel 90% of the time. Oh. In fact, when we first got married, Broderick was like, hey, we want to have some kids. I was like, yeah, I'm with you on that, honey. He's like, okay, but you kind of have to be here sometimes for that to happen. And I was on the road a lot. So we made some changes, I made some changes, and over the years, the changes went from changing jobs to no job. So, but that was a journey that we decided to go on.
What about you, Broderick? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm originally from upstate New York by way of Buffalo. Some people call it Canada. Moved down here in 1993. And I'm the oldest of all the children, grandchildren on every side. I'm the firstborn. So I was responsible for taking care of everybody. So with my mother, I have 2 sisters. With my dad, I have 2 brothers and a sister. My parents were never married.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just were teenagers that were experimenting.
Okay.
And I'm a result of the experimenting. My mother was 18, my dad was 17, but when I was born, my mother was 19 and Dad was 18 when I was born. I didn't really grow up at home. I grew up with my grandmother, for the most part, my maternal grandmother. Okay. My oldest brother is only 11 months younger than me. Okay. So that tells you a little bit about that story. Sure. My dad eventually did get married, and from that marriage they had twins, a boy and a girl, who are now juniors in college.
So you have a stepmother?
Bonus mom.
A bonus mom. I like that. Yes, I like that term much better.
Mom. She's definitely that. She's amazing.
So I take it that it's a positive relationship since you're using that term, bonus mom.
Incredibly positive. Oh yeah, I love her a lot. I could tell you so many stories about that, just how it didn't start that way. Sure. But through the grace of God, I mean, she's amazing.
Let's talk about how you guys met.
We met at a mutual friend's house. It was during the Christmas season, and the church where I became a Christian at, we had a dance ministry. And a friend of mine, who's also her mutual friend, we were working on doing an African dance presentation at a group home. At the same time, that same night where we were rehearsing, they were planning for a party, that they were having a Christmas party.
Mm-hmm. At her house. So
at
I
her
came
house.
over to decorate.
Right here in Mableton, actually. which
yeah.
is- yeah.
Literally
Oh,
around the
wow.
corner from our church, where the church is
Oh,
now.
wow.
So we met at her house. She had her boyfriend at the time, now husband, coincidentally, called on the phone, and she said, "I'll be right back." And we just started talking because he was just sitting there twiddling his thumbs, and she stayed on the phone for a while, and we hit it off, chatting away. And neither one of us were really dressed to meet. You know, we weren't in our very best. I was in ripped jeans.
Which is perfect. Neither one of us. We were at our worst, and that's what made it so beautiful. Is that our attraction wasn't physical.
Right.
It was, the conversation. She had me blocked in, and so in order to get out, she had to walk me out. We ended up talking for about an hour outside.
Oh, wow.
In December in Atlanta, which can be cold, as
Right,
you know.
right.
And so I was headed to New York City, where my dad lives, for my birthday. And I says, when I get back, may I take you on a date? And she was like, absolutely. And so the rest is history from there. I mean, after that date, we've been together, I would say.
Yeah, he would say, except a month later he stopped talking to me. And because of that, we had a break, and then we got back together later in the summer, and a few months later, and then he approached me, both of us, because of our faith. We're really intentional about dating. I had a 3-week cutoff. If it didn't look like it could progress, I was done after 3 weeks. I'm one of those people, I don't understand why someone would stay with someone for 6 months and hope it gets better. It's, after 3 weeks if it's gonna work out, if you're paying attention. And so we got back together, and he was very intentional about saying, hey, I think that you have the potential to be my wife, and I want to intentionally court you. So I was like, hey, that sounds really good.
Wow, yeah.
You don't get that every day, not in
No.
Atlanta, so even with Christians. So I was intrigued by that, and I felt the same way, and I said, okay, well, go ahead and do that. And so we did.
So how long did you date before you got married?
We dated for about 3 more months before we got engaged. We were
Okay.
engaged on Christmas.
Okay.
He surprised me at my parents' house. I knew something was up when my mother wanted me to vacuum. And then Broderick and our best friend, whose house we met at, showed up at the door, and ring in hand. And so we were married, 9 or 10 months later?
Wow.
So
So it sounds like you asked for her parents' permission to marry?
Absolutely. I knew that I wanted to marry Erica. She's right. There was a break. But there were just some things I was trying to work out within me. When Erica and I met, it was the perfect time. I was still fairly new in the faith, and that means I was giving up everything in my past. And in the past, it was all about the trophy girlfriend and all of these different things. And when I became a Christian, I says I'm going to be completely abstinent. And I was for about a year or two before I met Erica, and then plus we waited till we were married to consummate our marriage as well. And so I wanted to be pure. I mean, everything I read about Christianity as a Christian, I was like, this is what I have to do it to a T. And then I also read during this time, I read a book, Boundaries in Dating by Dr. Cloud, which really helped me to understand what Christian dating was about. And we shouldn't be dating, it should be courtship for the purpose of marriage. And I'm so glad, like I said, I'm glad that we were not in our best. We weren't wearing our Sunday best, if you will, when we met each other. We were just being very natural. And what I fell in love with was her personality, her heart for God, and just our conversation. We had a lot of things that we both loved. We loved art, which we used to go to museums all the time. She loved music. I looked at her CD collection. She had little jazz in there. I was like, as long as you have a little bit of jazz, we're good, because I love jazz. But I knew that she was the one for me.
Broderick, you shared earlier that you came from a blended family situation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I thought that would be the one to break a generational curse. My father is a result of, it comes from a blended family as well. And then I thought for sure that I would break that, but it didn't happen. So I did not find out that my son, I ended up having a son as well out of wedlock. I did not find out that I was a dad until I had already proposed to my wife,
Oh, wow.
who is my wife now, and just randomly ran into the other gentleman. I knew there was another guy involved. I knew that the young lady was pregnant, but I did not know it was mine. As a matter of fact, I was told it was not mine. He was not my child. And so I ran into the other guy in Walmart in the middle of the night, coming from her place. And he cleared some things up for me, saying, hey, you know, I see him. He says, hey, I asked him, how's your daughter? How's your son? He's like, oh, my daughter is good. Your son is getting big. This is my son. And so I had to go back after I'd already proposed to her, after I'd already asked for her hand in marriage from her parents and my own family. I had to go tell everybody, hey, I might be a dad. And so that was pretty tough, and it was really a big one for her to have to deal with.
The interesting thing was that at that point in my life, I looked at everything from, well, what is God's purpose in all of this? Because to me, it appeared that the child had been hidden for a reason. And after prayer and really just in talking to him, he genuinely, didn't know. It wasn't like he was trying to keep something from me. His whole family didn't know. Everybody was asking, well, what's Erica going to do? Is she going to, kick rocks and leave, or is she going to stick around? So I had a few things to think about. One was, am I ready to be a parent? Because I firmly believe that if you're going to marry someone who already has a child, then now you have a child. Yes. And I had good examples of that growing up in my family and my extended family and friends, where you didn't know that someone wasn't someone's blood child, so it wasn't a big deal. So I had to really deal with that, really pray about that. And then the other thing was just the getting through and getting over the shock of it all, because we were only recently engaged a couple of months before, and how does that change our world? And so I started researching things like child support laws in Georgia, and what that meant for us as a couple, and how all of that worked, and will we have him part-time? Does he live with us? Does how does that change? And then how does this create an upheaval to his world? Because now he's got this new person in his life that he didn't know before either. It was a big adjustment, but in the end, God showed me that there was a reason that I was supposed to be in this child's life. And even though I didn't know what it was at that moment, I wanted to find out what it was. And I think in the years that we've been married now, our son is 16, we have really had a really unique opportunity to be a force of good in his life, and working with his mom together as a team. I mean, she allowed me to homeschool him for 5th grade. Wow. Yeah. Which is unheard of in a blended situation like ours.
But it started with us sitting down and deciding this is how it's going to be, and making it clear that this is new for me too. I didn't plan to be, this was not part of my plan. So I'm an instant father. Right. And whether things worked out between she and I, it's not an option for me to step away from him. He's mine, I have to deal with it. Right. And so, but when we finally got things straightened out and we agreed we're going to push forward and get married, we both agreed that we would set standards. One would be he would not call my wife Erica. He would call her either Miss Erica or something. He would not call her by her first name. But he has the option to call her mom. He chose mom. We also agreed that we would, as much as we could, make decisions for him as if she was his birth mother, and as often as we could. And I won't lie, it wasn't easy. But when we set our rules, we were firm on them. He would go to church with us. We made it firm, and with a lot of resistance from his mother. She got really upset the first time she heard our son call my wife mom. But again, we had to remind her. I said, would you rather him not? If he's calling her mom and we're not making him call her mom, obviously he sees her as a mom. That should give you comfort in knowing that your child is well taken care of when he's not with you. My wife is not trying to replace you. She's just trying to be an extension of you. And we made it firm in that. Through trial and error, through a lot of hard work and prayer and just staying firm in our beliefs and sticking together in this. Her and my wife talk sometimes and I don't even talk. I don't even talk to her. They speak candidly together. We've prayed with her and for her. I mean, we do events together.
He had the loudest cheering section at his soccer games and his basketball
it would be the
games
whole
because
family.
it would be our family, our other children, his mother's family, his grandmother, my mom and dad. You know, we just don't, my parents don't treat him like he's not mine. In fact, no two people were happier to have a grandchild instantaneously after I got married than my parents were. But one of the bits of advice that we received during that time of trying to figure out what to do next, what our next steps was, one, his child no matter what. Two, the order from God for the family is it comes from God and then to the couple, you know, to the man is the head of the household, but spiritually we're his covering in the home. And so we have to always stay on the same page. And I think the mistake that I see a lot of couples make in a blended situation is whoever is the biological parent feels like they have to carry that load by themselves in dealing with the other biological parent. And they make decisions that affect the household without communicating that to the other one. So for example, if we wanted to buy him a new bicycle, well, my husband is going to tell me, you know, hey, he needs a new bicycle. Okay, great. And we look at our budget together and then we go shopping for a bicycle. Or, you know, more often than not, I'm like, okay, pick something out. But we do it together, you know, we do it together. Any financial decision is a joint because it affects our household. That's a mistake that I see a lot of other people make because you create unnecessary friction when there really doesn't have to be.
I really appreciate you guys for sharing your story. You have clearly found happily ever after. It may look a little bit different than the fairy tale version, but I think it's a little more genuine and real, and it's not a fairy tale.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
You know, hopefully somebody's blessed by our testimony.